Real quick, thank you to Idea Factory International for granting me a key through keymailer. Have you ever wanted to play an otome visual novel based on a light novel about someone reincarnating into the villainess of an otome visual novel? Well, My Next Life is a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom, Pirates of the Disturbance is definitely a game that fits that category. If you don't know me, and honestly, even if you do know me, you might not know, but I'm an actual sucker for romance in my weeb fiction. Romance anime, romance manga, romance light novels, and definitely romance and visual novels. Otome visual novels especially feel that need to be loved for me. If you don't know, otome games are story-driven visual novels that are full of romance, usually following a female protagonist as she navigates relationships with a variety of potential love interests. I am an absolute sucker for these things. Now, I had originally watched the anime for this series, and I can say that I really do love it. It's fun watching what is essentially a reverse harem, where all the men and ladies have fallen hard for the main character. And yes, I do mean both the men and ladies. So when we bring it into visual novels, it is definitely an interesting title to play. Usually when you play dating sims and the like, it's usually a slow burn throughout several hours of both the protagonist and the love interest taking hours to fall in love. Or at the very least, most of the time you're not aware that the love interest is in love with you. In this game, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Now, the game is an original story that takes place after the events of Volume 2 of the light novels, which is Volume 4 of the manga, and Season 1 of the anime. Now, it's not strictly necessary to have seen the series before jumping in, but I would recommend it, as the game only makes very brief character introductions and pretty much assumes that you know what the hell is going on. But in case you don't know what's going on, basically, Katerina Claes is a young noble girl who bumps her head one day, and suddenly remembers that she used to be a 17-year-old weeb. She then realizes she's been reborn into the world of Fortune Lover, which was a popular otome game in her world, as the actual villainess of the game. See, the standard otome trope is that a villainess is doomed to be either kicked out of the kingdom or similar, or even killed in pretty much every route of a game. Katerina starts taking some countermeasures in order to avoid being exiled or killed, which ends up affecting how the other characters feel about her in more ways than one. The visual novel's premise is that it takes place in Fortune Lover's fan discs. Fan discs are kind of like DLCs for visual novels, usually technically a separate game though. It pretty much just shows a continuation of routes after the main game story, pumped with romantic moments and as such. Kinda like after story. The game begins as we're introduced to the Fortune Lover's fan disc, where we learned that it also had an additional route included. A route that Katerina didn't play before she died. A route where she will either end up dead or exile. We then meet Katerina and Keith, who are being made to spend their spring break from the academy to go aboard the Vinculum, a state-of-the-art luxury liner, for its very first voyage. Once she actually gets on the ship though, she realizes that her entire group of friends are also there for one reason or another, and that they'll be having a totally really relaxing journey at sea together. However, the tides change pretty quickly when the ship is suddenly attacked by pirates. They take over the Vinculum and end up holding every single passenger hostage. As we progress through the story, you can end up on one of the romance routes and eventually figure out how to be free of the pirates, and allow Katerina to be free from her doom yet again. You initially are only able to date the main guys from the series, but once you've completed at least one... Now, one thing to mention is that despite how clearly the women in the game will tell Katerina that they love her, you unfortunately cannot romance them. There is a possibility to get normal endings where you technically end up with the women, but it's not really romantic or anything. At least not for Katerina. I'd love to talk more in depth about the routes, but unfortunately I cannot. You may have to wait another day before you can hear my love for male tsundere. As this is a visual novel, it's not like there's a crazy amount of mechanics or anything. Admittedly, I am a bit out of the VN loop, but I do find it very interesting that the game does have matching lip flaps.
なるほど。相変わらずの勘の鋭さですね。では、後ほどパーティーで。何を勝手に姉さんを連れて行こうとしているんですか?
It's not live 2D or anything, just actual PNG lip flaps. Crazy. Additionally, the game actually does switch perspectives every once in a while, usually shown with the name at the top left corner saying who's narrating. 99% of the time, it's usually a character saying how much they love Katarina though, which personally I do enjoy and find very funny. But I can imagine that playing through all the routes, it can get very tiring very quickly. Initially, there are moments called memory scenarios that pop up in the top left of the screen where a little text-based short scenario is presented, like a little short story. Usually it's a precious memory of one of the characters. I think they're very cute, but as usual, it does usually end up with them being like, I love Katarina! Now for the music, I did actually really like the music tracks. There's only 19 tracks, but I felt like none of them were intrusive. They were all pretty enjoyable to listen to, and usually fit the theme of what was happening on screen quite well. They were pretty solid tracks. Now, would I recommend this game? Well, it depends honestly. If you're already a fan of the series and you're looking for some supplementary content and for Katarina to actually end up with someone by the end, sure, especially if you have a favorite among the male characters. If you're looking for some good old urine loving, then this game won't be for you. Have you never interacted with anything else in the series? Don't care about Katarina being in a relationship? Or are someone that would get annoyed at Katarina for being the equivalent of a male harem MC? Then no, I would not recommend this. Go watch the anime first at least. But overall, I really enjoyed the game. And it definitely was some good old fan service. And by fan service, I mean characters being goofy and it was great. And by fan, I mean me. I'm the fan. I was a fan. I am a fan. Good fan. I think that's all I have to say about the game. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, thumbs up, and 5-star this video. This is my first time trying this sort of scripted video. This was very strange for me. So if you'd like to see more of this, please let me know. Otherwise, don't. I will cry. As always, have a good evening, good morning, good night, good day, good afternoon. My name is Mystical Yuki, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye!